Please. Somebody help, he's killing my mom. The scream ripped through Lucy's diner like a gunshot. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Coffee cups stopped in midair. Saturday morning conversations died in an instant, as every head turned toward the front door. The boy who had shouted stood there, swaying on bare, bleeding feet. He looked about 8 years old. His brown hair stuck up in wild clumps, like he'd been running with the wind clawing at him. One sneaker was gone, the other hanging by its laces. His t-shirt was ripped at the collar, stained with dirt and something darker. Tears carved tracks through the grime on his cheeks. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. In the far corner of the diner, 8 men in black leather vests rose to their feet at the same time. Victor Cain pushed his half-eaten pancakes aside and stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the tile. At 50, he moved with the controlled precision of a man who'd spent his life in dangerous places. 6'3", broad-shouldered, gray threaded through his dark beard and hair, his arms covered in tattoos that disappeared beneath the edges of his Thunder Knights Motorcycle Club vest. He crossed the diner in long strides, while everyone else sat rooted in place, eyes wide, knuckles white around their coffee cups. Lucy, the diner owner, stood frozen behind the counter, one hand over her mouth, the other still wrapped around a coffee pot. The boy's chest heaved as he sucked in desperate breaths. "Please," he begged, voice cracking. "Please. You gotta help her. He's hurting her real bad." Victor dropped to one knee so he was eye level with the kid, making his tall frame smaller, less threatening. "Hey," he said quietly, voice calm but solid as concrete. "Tyler," the boy sobbed. "Tyler Martinez." Victor nodded once. "Okay, Tyler. I'm Victor. Where is your mom right now?" Tyler's hand shook as he pointed out the diner window, across Highway 95, to the rundown motel crouched on the other side like a bad memory. "Room 14, he choked out. He's beating her. I tried to pull him off, but he threw me. I ran. I didn't know where else to go." Victor's jaw tightened. He looked back at his brothers. 7 pairs of eyes met his. They didn't need words. The Thunder Knights had made an oath when they patched in. Protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Especially women. Especially kids. Victor stood in one smooth motion and turned his head toward the counter. "Lucy. Call 911. Now." The words snapped the diner owner out of her shock. She grabbed the phone, with trembling hands. Chairs scraped, boots hit tile. One by one, the bikers moved. Riggs, tall and lean with a medic patch on his vest, and the kind of calm you only learned in war zones, fell into step. Snake, all tattoos and shaved head, eyes sharp as knives, reached for the door. Behind them came Tank, Diesel, Rooster, and the rest of the crew. Tyler's lower lip trembled. "Please don't let him kill her," he whispered. Victor looked down at him. "We've got you, kid," he said. "We're not letting anything happen to your mom." He shrugged into his cut properly, adjusting the Thunder Knight's patch on his back like armor, and led his brothers out into the harsh morning sunlight. The motel across the highway was the kind of place no one asked questions. Paint peeled from the walls in jagged strips. Several windows were covered with blankets instead of curtains. The parking lot was cracked and pitted, weeds pushing up through the broken asphalt. Room 14 wasn't hard to find. You could hear it, a man's voice, hoarse with rage, roaring through the thin walls. A woman's voice, begging and breaking. The sickening thud of fists meeting flesh. Tyler surged forward, but Snake caught him gently by the shoulders. "You stay with me, little man," Snake said, his deep voice unexpectedly soft. "Let the grown-ups handle the monster." Victor didn't bother knocking. He planted his boot beside the doorknob and kicked. The door flew inward with a splintering crack, slamming against the wall so hard a cheap picture frame crashed to the floor. Dust swirled in the shaft of light that followed the bikers into the room. The entire scene froze like a photograph. A woman lay curled on the stained carpet between the bed and the wall, wearing a torn t-shirt and jeans. Blood trickled from her nose and mouth. One eye was already swelling shut, turning an ugly purple. Bruises old and new blossomed along her arms. Standing over her was a big man, well over 6 feet, muscles bulging under a tight tank top. His fist was raised, veins popping in his neck, eyes wild. "That's enough," Victor said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. It carried the weight of a man who'd seen violence up close and wasn't impressed by cheap imitations. The man spun around so fast he almost lost his footing. His face was flushed, his breath thick with the smell of cheap whiskey. "Who the hell are you?" he snarled. "Get out of here. This is between me and my woman." 8 leather-clad figures filled the doorway and spilled into the cramped space, their presence making the small room feel even smaller. Their vests bore the same patch, a roaring engine with wings and the words, "Thunder Knights, MC. She's not your anything," Victor said evenly. "And you made it our business when her kid ran into that diner begging strangers for help," the man sneered, trying to puff himself up despite being outnumbered. "You think you scare me?" He swung a punch at Victor's face, a wild, drunk, telegraphed swing that would have knocked most men down. Victor stepped in. He caught the man's wrist mid-air, turned his hips, and twisted the arm behind his back in one smooth motion. The man's own momentum sent him face first into the wall with a heavy thud. The drywall cracked. Tank and Diesel moved instantly, locking the abuser's arms and shoulders, pinning him to the floor. "Stay down," Tank rumbled, planting a knee between the man's shoulder blades. Riggs was already at the woman's side, dropping to his knees with practiced ease. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he asked, voice gentle. "Where does it hurt the worst?" She winced as she tried to breathe. "My ribs," she gasped. "He kicked me. There. And Tyler. Where's Tyler? Where's my son?" "Right here, Mama." Tyler slipped past Snake like water, dropping to the floor beside his mother. He wrapped his small arms around her, as carefully as he could, tears spilling over again. "I got help, Mama," he said, voice shaking. "The bikers came. You're safe now. You're safe." The woman, Rebecca Martinez, clung to her son with one arm, despite the pain shooting through her body. Tears mixed with blood on her bruised face. She looked up at Victor with her one good eye. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. He would have killed me this time. I know he would have." Victor swallowed hard. The muscles in his jaw worked. "Not today," he said. "Not ever again." In the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder. Victor glanced back at his brothers. They understood without a word. This wasn't over when the police arrived. A woman and a boy had run out of places to go, and had chosen them as a last hope. The Thunder Knights didn't walk away from that. Not anymore. Not ever. Sheriff Tom Cruise arrived with lights flashing and 2 ambulances close behind. He was a solid man, in his 50s, who'd worked this county for 23 years and knew the Thunder Knights well. They ran toy drives every Christmas, helped local schools, raised money for veterans. Not once had they caused trouble in his jurisdiction. He stepped out of his patrol car and surveyed the scene with experienced eyes. 8 bikers standing calm and ready, a woman being loaded onto a stretcher by paramedics, a terrified child refusing to let go of his mother's hand, and Marcus Webb, known troublemaker, being held face down on the motel floor. "What happened here, Victor?" Cruise asked. Victor explained in short, clipped sentences. "Kid ran into Lucy's diner, screaming for help. Said his mama's boyfriend was beating her. We found Marcus doing exactly that. We stopped him. That's the whole story." The sheriff looked at Rebecca being carefully loaded into the ambulance. Tyler climbed in beside her, small hand clutching hers like a lifeline. Cruise had responded to calls about Marcus Webb before. 3 times in 6 months. Each time, Rebecca had been too scared to press charges. "Rebecca," the sheriff said gently, stepping closer to the ambulance. "Do you want to press charges this time?" Rebecca looked at Marcus, who was glaring at her with pure hatred burning in his bloodshot eyes. Then she looked at the wall of bikers standing between her and danger. 8 men she didn't even know who had risked themselves to save her. "Yes," she said, and her voice was stronger than it had been in months. "I want to press charges for everything he's done." Cruz smiled grimly. "Good. Marcus Webb, you're under arrest for assault, battery, domestic violence, and about 6 other charges I'll think of on the way to the station." As Marcus was hauled away in handcuffs, still struggling against the officers, he shouted back at Rebecca with venom dripping from every word. "I'll be out tomorrow. I'll make bail, and I'll find you. You can't hide from me." Victor stepped between Marcus and the ambulance, his presence a physical barrier. "No," he said quietly. "You won't." That evening, Victor and 2 brothers visited County Memorial Hospital. They found Rebecca in a 3rd-floor room, Tyler curled up beside her on the narrow bed. Both were sleeping peacefully, probably the first real rest either of them had gotten in months. The first sleep without fear. A nurse named Angela approached them in the hallway. "You're the bikers who saved her, aren't you?" "We helped," Victor said. Uncomfortable with being called a hero, Angela's eyes were fierce with emotion. "She told me everything while we were treating her. That monster has been terrorizing her for 8 months. She tried to leave him twice. Both times he found her and beat her worse. She was running out of options, running out of hope. She's got options now," Victor said firmly. "She's got hope now, too." When Rebecca woke an hour later, she immediately started crying again, not from physical pain, but from relief, mixed with fear. "He'll make bail," she said, voice shaking. "He always does. His brother owns a bail bonds company. He'll be out by tomorrow. And he knows where I live. He knows where I work. He knows everything about me." Victor pulled up a chair and sat down beside her bed. "Not this time. And even if he somehow does get out, I promise you he'll have to go through all of us first, and we don't plan on moving." "I don't understand," Rebecca said, confusion mixing with gratitude. "Why are you doing this for us? You don't even know who we are." Victor glanced at Tyler, still sleeping peacefully. "Your boy had real courage today. He could have frozen. He could have hidden. Instead, he ran for help. That took guts. Can't walk away from courage like that." 47. Telement 1C. 47. Telement U. Ander 7. Bud. Well. 47. Ander 7. Well DU. The Thunder Knights called an emergency meeting that same night. 23 members showed up within an hour, at their clubhouse, a converted warehouse on the edge of town, with motorcycles parked in precise rows outside. Victor stood before his brothers, his voice steady and clear. "Rebecca Martinez and her son Tyler need our protection. Marcus will probably make bail within days. When he does, he'll come looking for them. She has no money saved because she's been running from him for months. No family in this area. No safe place to go." The club president, Axel, a tough Vietnam veteran with gray hair tied back and scars that told stories, leaned back in his chair and thought carefully. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Full club protection," Victor said. "We find her a safe apartment, help her get back on her feet financially, and we make damn sure Marcus understands that touching her again means dealing with all of us." One younger member, Spike, objected. "Look, I feel bad for her, but we're not a charity organization. We all have our own families to worry about." Victor's voice turned sharp. "That little boy ran to us. When he was terrified and desperate, he looked at us and saw help. He trusted us when everyone else in that diner just sat there doing nothing. We answered his call. We can't betray that trust now by walking away." Axel studied Victor's face for a long moment, then looked around the room at the other members. The Thunder Knights had always had a code: protect the vulnerable, especially women and kids trying to escape abuse. It's what separated them from criminal gangs. It's what gave them respect in their community. "Motion passes," Axel finally said. "Victor, you're point man on this operation. Figure out what they need. and make it happen. By Monday morning, the rescue had hit every local news channel. Bikers save woman from brutal assault, played on repeat. Lucy's diner security footage showed Tyler running in desperately, showed the bikers' immediate response without hesitation. Public perception shifted overnight. These weren't dangerous outlaws. They were men who'd stopped for Saturday breakfast and ended up saving lives. Lucy started a fundraiser right at the diner. She put a jar on the counter, with Tyler's crayon drawing taped to its stick figures of bikers holding hands with a woman and child. "Thank you," spelled out in shaky letters across the top. By the end of the week, the community had donated $15,000. Enough for first and last month's rent, security deposits, furniture, and a financial safety net. The Thunder Knights found Rebecca a small 2-bedroom apartment in a secured building across town, far from anywhere Marcus would think to look. They installed extra deadbolts, gave her emergency contact numbers for all 23 members, and made it crystal clear to everyone: if Marcus or anyone else threatened this woman or her son, 40 bikers would respond immediately. Marcus did make bail 4 days later, exactly as Rebecca had predicted. But when he tried to find her, he hit walls everywhere. Her old apartment was empty, her phone number disconnected, her new address unlisted. She had a new job at a company that happened to be owned by one of the Thunder Knights members. When Marcus tried filing a harassment complaint against the Thunder Knights, Sheriff Cruz actually laughed. "You beat a woman in front of multiple witnesses, including her 8-year-old son," Cruz said flatly. "These bikers stopped you from potentially killing her. That's not harassment, Marcus. That's called civic duty." Case dismissed. Realizing he was beaten, Marcus finally left town. He was last spotted 2 states away, finally understanding that Rebecca Martinez was completely untouchable. 1 year later, Lucy's diner held a celebration. Rebecca stood to speak publicly for the first time since everything had happened. She wore the waitress uniform Lucy had given her when she'd hired Rebecca full-time, offering fair pay and flexible hours so Rebecca could match Tyler's school schedule. "A year ago," Rebecca said, her voice strong and clear, "my son ran into this place begging strangers for help. These bikers didn't hesitate even for a second. They gave us our lives back. They gave us hope." Tyler stepped forward, now 9 years old and taller, holding a painted canvas version of his original crayon drawing. It showed 8 bikers surrounding a woman and child, protecting them from darkness, with words reading, "Sometimes heroes ride Harleys." He handed it to Victor. "For your clubhouse," Tyler said, "so you never forget what you did for us." The crowd erupted in applause. Victor knelt down this big, weathered man with tattoos and scars and years of hard living and pulled Tyler into a tight hug. "You were the real hero, kid," he said, voice rough with emotion. "You had the courage to ask for help when it mattered most. Never forget that. Sometimes the bravest cry for help interrupts the quietest morning. What begins as breakfast among strangers ends as a rescue that transforms lives forever. Real heroes answer calls they never expected to receive, and they don't walk away when the cameras stop rolling. Because family isn't just blood. Sometimes family wears leather vests and rides Harleys. Sometimes angels have tattoos and beards. Sometimes the most dangerous-looking people are the ones who save you." The Thunder Knights didn't just save Rebecca and Tyler that day. They reminded an entire community what brotherhood really means. Showing up when it matters, protecting those who can't protect themselves, and never walking away from courage, even when it comes from an 8-year-old boy with bleeding feet and a desperate heart. The phoenix rises. Always.